Hello, good morning everyone. My name is Sumesh Pathak, Assistant Professor, Department of Management Studies, Uttarakhand Open University. In the last lecture, we discussed the recruitment part of the recruitment and selection process. We learned about what recruitment is, what actually it entails, what are the procedures, and what is the significance and importance of recruitment, what are the types of recruitment, that is internal and external sources. And now in this session, in this lecture, we will study the selection part of it, the second part of it. So coming to the selection part, what actually selection means is, selection is the process of choosing a duly qualified and a skilled person according to the organizational requirements of a designated job, right? Suppose, like in the recruitment, we discussed that wherever you apply for a job, you might have some certain qualifications, and you see if a particular job is as per your qualification, right? Now, selection is the second part of it, or the final part of recruitment, we can say. So, here, what we do is we choose the duly qualified and the skilled person according to the organization requirements, like what is the requirement of an organization, and with respect to the designated job. Okay, so selection has been regarded as the most important function of HR department. The main function of HR department is actually to select, like hiring and firing of a particular employee. So here in the recruitment selection process, what is done is a person with essential qualifications or desired qualifications is selected for the job, right? It ensures that an organization has a right number, right kind of people at the right place and at the right time, right? See and understand this very carefully. What the selection ensures is that the right number of people are available, at the right kind of people are available, at the right place and at the right time. This is what the whole process and whole gist of what selection actually is. So it is the process of differentiating between applicants in order to identify and hire those with greater likelihood of success, right? So if there are, suppose, two participants or two last candidates left for the final interview, and there is only one job, and there are two applicants, so what is actually done is the one with a greater likelihood of success is chosen, and the other one is asked to leave in that particular time of frame, right? Now, what is the selection process? First, what do we do is we preliminary interrogate the candidate. Then we go through, or we make him go through, the candidate go through the selection tests. Then the process of interview is followed. Then the reference and the background check is done of the candidate. Then selection decision is done. Then physical examinations, job offer, contract of employment, and evaluation of selection program. So we'll understand all these points in a few lines in the next slide. So what happens is in preliminary interrogation is, the purpose of this interview is to scrutinize the applicants, that is elimination of unqualified candidates. Like in the recruitment process, what we did is everyone who who qualify a basic essential criteria is allowed to participate in the selection process. But here in the selection process, what is done is, first in the preliminary interrogation part, the person with unqualified application is asked to leave, or the person is eliminated from the process. Then there are many kind of selection tests, like if you have to know a particular personality of an individual, or if you want to know how good a person is emotionally when he is working for a designated job. And there are a number of tests which we will discuss in the next presentation. So right now I'm just telling you that what is the process, or what is the scope or significance of selection test in a selection process of recruitment selection. Like different types of selection tests may be administered depending on the job and the company, right? So what kind of test actually a candidate will go through depends on the type of company a person is applying to, right? So generally tests are used to determine the applicant's ability, aptitude and personality and emotional intelligence, basically whether the applicant would be able to take the pressure or would be able to understand the dynamics of a current organization or not. Then the third part is interview, right? An interview is conducted at the beginning, and the selection process of the employment interview can be done one-to-one interview, or a panel process can be followed. Like what happens in interview is interview like asking questions and answering on the spot. Like it can be a panel interview or when there would be a single candidate and number of the interview takers or the interviewers would be more than one. That's called panel interview. Or it can be a one-on-one interaction between interview and the interviewee, right? The third part is interview. Then the reference and the background checks. Most of the employers, like I wouldn't say like everyone checks go for this reference and background checks, but today at this time of being people actually committing fraud and addressing their false certificates, what happens in today's time and era is most of the employers ask for names, address, contact numbers or references to verify information and knowing whether the applicant is eligible to solve the tasks he's being hired for, right? Suppose there is a candidate who has shown that, for example, you understand this way, कि if there is a essential criteria for a designated job that the employee had to have 5 years of experience in a particular job, but in that case he shows that he has worked for an X so and so company, and he has also furnished the data, the certificates that yes, he has all the relevant documents. Now what happens is in the reference and background checks, sometimes the HR department of the current organization where the person is applying go for background checks. He you generally calls the company and asks for the verification of the candidate, and if in case the candidate passes through it, then the next step is followed. Because right now what happens is sometimes candidate furnish wrong names, wrong address or contact numbers. So it's very difficult, or it's very important to actually verify and have a reference and background check to attain the certainty of the candidate being hired, right? Then the selection, or see, we are discussing the selection part, and in selection part also there is a process called selection, right? So selection is deciding who to select, is the most crucial part of all the steps in the selection process. Okay, the final decision has to be made from the pool of individuals only who pass the test, interviews and reference checks. Like in the previous 1, 2, 3, 4 points, what we discussed is the person has to go for preliminary interrogation, then depending on the company he has to qualify certain tests, then he has to pass the interview, and then also he has to go through the reference checks. If at all these 4 parameters are declared successfully done as per the requirement of the interviewer, then the process of selection is conducted. After an employee is selected, see, physical examination, it happens in some of the companies where the physical fitment or physical fitness of a candidate is required. For example, you might have heard that people are working in the ships like merchant navy, right? Or in the army, or there are many companies who require certain difficult tasks to be done during the process of doing a particular work. So in that case, after selection, before the job is offered, the candidate is required to undergo a proper physical fitness test, since a particular job requires a person to be physically fit and of a sound mind, right? Not every job is just sitting in the office and doing paperwork. There are certain jobs in which in which proper field work is present there. So the person has to be physically fit in order to roam around and conduct his work properly. So that's why a physical fitness test is also conducted to understand whether the person is of sound mind or not. Job offer. After the physical fitness test is conducted, the next step in selection process is offering the job, right? The candidate is offered job letter. The letter generally contains the profile he is being hired for, and the date of joining might be mentioned, and the salary that is negotiated at the end or the time of the interview is also mentioned. So what happens is, when you actually go through the selection process, and when a job is being offered to you, there is a letter, formal letter, that is given to you either by mail or through physical in physical form. In that job offer, what is mentioned is the profile or the position you are being hired for. The date of joining is also mentioned there, and the salary part which you discussed during the time of interview is also mentioned on the job offer. The eighth one is contract of employment. Basic information is written in the contract of employment that varies according to the types of job. So each document produced is self-attested and submitted. So this is a very basic thing to understand. Like, after the job offer, a contract of employment is also furnished and given to the candidate that is who is selected. Here, the basic information like the terms and conditions of the employment, basic rules and regulations of which the candidate has to follow when he is working for the company is mentioned, right? And the document that you as a candidate will be producing will be self-attested. You have to sign on each and every document, providing and verifying that the document that you have submitted are verified and are authentic to the best of your knowledge. Okay. Then the ninth one is evaluation. Effectiveness of the selection process is a systematic evaluation. The HR department of an organization outlines the process and lists out the needful changes and modifications, if any, for future. Right. So when the proper selection process is conducted, the last step is taken, or last step is considered, is the evaluation part. The selection process is conducted. Now we have to know how well it, or what was the effectiveness of the selection process. That process is called evaluation of the effectiveness of a particular process that was followed. So the HR department also does this on a timely basis. Like every season when the hiring of some candidates is done, then also the evaluation part is conducted. Like, what are the things that can be included in the near future if in case the selections does not turn out to be so well, or if in case there are certain modifications required for the future references, right? So to put in Dale Yoder's words, who Dale Yoder is? Dale Yoder is an author who has written books on personal management and industrial relations as well. Like, what actually he says is, selection is the process in which candidates for employment are divided into two classes: those who are to be offered employment and those who are not, right? So it's a give and take. If there are two positions and there are if there are one position and there are two candidates, so it's very affirmative that only one candidate will be given the job. Like in a case of suppose cricket match, there are the chances that only one team will win. The other team has to lose, right? So if one wins, the other is automatically has lost the match. In that case, compared to, or if you are comparing that with the selection process, it also means that the candidates who have applied for the employment are also divided into two classes: those who have been offered employment and those who are not. Okay, so it refers to the process by which qualified candidates or applicants are selected by means of various tests and parameters to select the most viable and acceptable candidate of the overall recruited. After the process of recruitment is done, the process of selection is conducted, and the most viable, most acceptable, most available candidate who the organization thinks is very apt as per the organizational requirement, is selected at the end. Selection is the lengthy process. Of course, like we have seen the process that follows, it is a lengthy process. It takes time, right? Like from the preliminary interview to the evaluation of the employment, it takes a certain time. So that's why it's a lengthy process, and it's also regarded as a negative process, because in recruitment what happens is everybody is allowed with the essential qualifications to sit for the test or sit for a job. But in selection what happens is some people are selected while the others are not able to qualify for the said job. Why selection is important, right? We have seen that selection may this happens, that happens, but why actually is it important? We need to understand this as well. Selection helps in matching the available qualification of applicants with the current job requirements. Okay, so what happens is the available qualification of the candidate, if it matches with the current job requirement of the organization, of course, then selection process becomes easy, and the candidate hiring also becomes an easy task. Second, it is a process of weeding out unsuitable or not fit candidates and identifying the most suitable one, like we discussed in the last slide. So the main purpose of selection is to select the right person at the right time. Right? Main definition of selection is this only, like selecting the right number, the right person, and at the right time. Right? So it is also known as a negative process, as it rejects a large number of applicants from the available pool. Okay. Now, several types of interviews are commonly followed depending on the nature and importance of the position to be filled in an organization. Basically, it's the oral examination of the candidates for the required employment. The assessment and judgment is generally done through observation and the information obtained while evaluating the answers. Now, we have discussed very types of selection methods. In this mode of selection, we will discuss the type of interviews. Like first one is formal interview, that is also referred to as structured interview. The other is informal, or also known as unstructured interview, situational, panel interview, depth interview, and stress interview. Here in this presentation, we will discuss the interview part of it. The first one is formal or the structured interview. So the employer has a fixed set of questions for all the candidates. Like there is this normal set of questions that is available, or that is applicable for all the candidates who are sitting for the interview process. This helps employers grade the candidates without being biased, as they have to answer the same question which is not experience based. Okay, what is done in the formal interview is same set of questions is asked to the different candidates. What is the advantage of it? Like the biasness is reduced because the question is having a particular answer, and only that answer will suffice or will satisfy the interviewer. The one who gives the answer that is required will be taken forward for the next step. It is a data collection method that relies on asking questions in a set order to collect data on a topic. A list of questions is asked by the interviewer that is prepared in advance, of course, because it is a set of predetermined questions. The questions are mostly closed-ended. Closed-ended means it has a certain answer. You can't just roam about the answer, or just can't just beat around the bush. Like this can be the answer, or this cannot be the answer. This makes sure that the candidate keep his answer precise and to the point. Okay. So this was the process of formal and structured interview, or what actually it entails. Now this unstructured and informal interview, what does it mean is, these are generally open-ended questions and the interviewer does not have a predetermined set of questions to ask from. Interview relies on the conversational approach. Like if you people also might have attended some interview process, what happens is sometimes interviewer becomes very informal with the candidate in order to understand his approach towards the role. This is solely a type of tactic or technique that is followed by the interviewer. Being friendly or being following an amicable approach also lets the interviewer knows about the proper behavior or the behavioral tendency of a candidate, whether he would be able to work in the tensed or relaxed atmosphere in a company or not. Here the interviewer relies on conversational approach to assess the candidate's skills, experience, and his approach towards the role being offered. This provides a more of a cordial and relaxed atmosphere, allowing the interviewer to have a better understanding of the person's personality and his potential to do a certain job. Okay. Now, coming to the third one, situational interview. These are the types of interviews in which the interviewer presents the candidate with a hypothetical situation related to the role they are applying for and asks them how would they respond under the similar situation. Suppose situations, right? Giving situations to a particular candidate in order to assess how would the person would respond to the same situation if he faces in the near future in the company, right? So this is conducted basically to understand one's problem solving and decision making skills. The problem is not in front of you, but the interview has created such a condition that you are in that authority to solve it, and you are given that authority, or you are given that responsibility, to solve this particular task by your own problem solving and decision making skills, as well as your ability to take pressure and respond to the challenges in the workplace. Once a person is selected in the workplace, he might face different kind of challenges, like location based challenges. He might not be able to adjust with the current scenario in a company. There would be a different type of mental challenges that the candidate face if he gets inducted in an organization. In situational interview, what is done is he is given a certain situation, in that similar situation which might be faced in the job while he's pursuing that career in a particular organization. So here what happens is the problem solving and the decision making skills of the candidate is checked. It is basically done to get an idea of the ability of the candidate to apply for the already acquired skills and the experience to real life scenarios. Every candidate must be having certain quality of certain or a set of skills. How well he is able to apply that skill to the particular situation is what matters in this kind of interview. Okay. Now, panel interviews. So it refers to the type of interviews including one applicant and several interviewers. The hiring process is meant to incorporate feedback from diverse sources into the hiring process rather than relying upon a single individual's assessment of a candidate. Here what happens is a group of interviewers select a candidate depending on different skills and different abilities to answer a question. Here the chances of selection are more compatible or more what do you call that, diverse. It comes from a diverse source, so the selection of the candidate is done in a more holistic manner, right? So when decisions are made collectively, it is more likely that it is if in any case an individual biasness might occur, it can be balanced by the counter views of other panelists. Like we discussed in the above paragraph, when decisions are made collectively and there is a unanimous decision in the favor of a candidate, it is more likely that if in any case an individual biasness occurs, so this can be balanced by the counter views of other panelists. So at the end, the most favorable candidate is given the job, right? So it decreases the time span of the selection process as the number of rounds are reduced due to the availability of panelists at once. In many companies, what happens is many rounds are conducted just in order to select a single candidate. In this case, when we are conducting a panel interview, the number of rounds or the number of interviews are reduced to 1 or 2 because the people are available at once and the decision can be taken in a single take or in a single process, right? So the next one is depth interview. Depth interviews are generally carried out face to face so that a detailed report can be deciphered of the candidates. Understanding of body language also adds to know the insights and behavior of an individual. In this case, the interviewer fairly observes the candidate and he understands the body language of the applicant to understand his behavior. How would he behave in a certain situation? Now it helps in knowing how an individual will behave and feel about a particular question. It also allows the interviewers to explain question in detail if the candidate find them difficult to understand. They also observe the tone of the answers and other non-verbal clues that could help them gain more insights into the candidate's personality. Now, suppose a question is asked to the candidate, how well and how tonality, what is the tonality of the candidate also matters a lot in choosing him for the designated job. His tonality, his way of answering, his way of sitting, his way of using his non-verbal clues, right? The way he sits, the way he keeps his hand, the way he answers, or the way he answers a certain set of questions, how his eyes are looking, if proper eye contact is maintained or not, whether he is confident or not. Everything is checked in depth interview. Then stress interview, like we studied or we learned in the situation interview, like in that a particular situation is given to the candidate to understand how he would behave in that situation. In the stress interview, The interviewer asks intimidating questions or mildly uncomfortable questions in hopes of witnessing how a potential employee performs in a stressful situation. Okay, the selection team might ask complex or confusing questions, conduct a simulation to see how an individual acts and behave in a certain situation. It is conducted basically to test a candidate's crucial thinking or critical thinking and problem solving skills. How well a person would be able to react to a situation or to a question is a part of stress interview. A stress interview gives employers the opportunity to see for themselves in real time how a candidate behaves under pressure. It is not to be said again and again that a job where a candidate is applying might be full of pressure. Every job has some kind of some other kind of or some kind of pressure. So in this case, the interviewer checks if a particular individual would be able to carry or would be able to understand that pressure very well as per the requirement or not. Sometimes the job requires high mental patience and physical ability. In that case, a candidate with a calm and stable composure fares well and is able to think and act in a mature manner. Like, so 4 to 3 to 4 interviews that we discussed: formal interview, informal, situational, panel, depth, and stress interview. Now, at the end, it is to be noted that these were the basics of recruitment and selection process in an organization. There is always a lot more to learn in any topic if it is covered word to word. Here, we have learned about what actually a selection process is and what does it entails. Now, in the upcoming lecture, we will try to understand the compensation management after a candidate is recruited and passes through the selection stage. The next step comes is discussing and or negotiating the compensation. Now, here I've mentioned some of the books that you can refer to while doing your research or while studying further. Human Resource Management by Tata McGraw-Hill publication. Then we have Sultan Chand and Sons publication. Then we have one book by Himalaya publication and the other one again by Sultan Chand and Sons. Okay, so I hope this lecture was fruitful to you in understanding the recruitment and selection process. Thank you so much.